So we're up next, and one of the things that Anna has just been speaking about is what makes us human. And one of the key things that makes us human is our messiness, is that it's not always going to go exactly the same way every time we do it. And that's really part of the beauty of being us and making us who we are. And we have someone that's going to speak about that now. But also, she might be a familiar face for some of you because she was actually here in 2022, and she was teaching us how to show up. So now back, and who better to present than the Emergence and Human-Centered Technology Director, Sarah Freiesleben.
Good morning, Women in Tech Sweden. What an amazing community you have built here. So much energy, people lifting each other up, not putting anybody down, and creating a space for nuanced conversations around technology. As Stephanie said in the introduction, you can't go to a tech conference these days without hearing about AI. But what is missing is nuanced conversations about AI. I go to a lot of tech conferences and meetups, and the conversation is very static. It's very AI or not. Is AI the future? Yes, AI is the future. If you're not using AI, you are a laggard. If you're a leader and you haven't put AI in your strategy, then you're obviously not leading very well. There's AI shaming starting to happen. And what's missing from this conversation is nuance. Never before have we talked about technology as the thing itself so much as we're doing with AI. But really, what is technology? Technology isn't a thing in its own right. Technology is a tool that we can use to solve problems and make things easier. Just like a craftsperson would have a toolbox and they would use the different tools to design something nice, the craftsperson is nothing without the imagination and the desire to build something or make something good. The tool doesn't become the goal. When we make the tool the goal, we automatically take focus away from the human, and human becomes a little add-on. We go to conferences, and then there's a little humanity booth. I often get invited to speak at that, and it's a little bit hippie usually, and you get to go to the humanity booth and sprinkle some humanity on top. And if you talk to technologists, they'll say, yeah, but the human part, that's a given. Ethics, of course we have to have ethics. But ethics isn't a just automatic thing that happens when you start focusing on technology first, especially if the technology is driving for profits. Then the focus is on that. So if we want to today look at the relationship between humans and technology to bring this nuance in, I think it's important to start by thinking about how humans actually make sense of the world and use our minds and our bodies to actually sense make in order to think about what problems do we want to solve and how do we want to solve them. So let's go on a little trip down memory lane and think about some of the ways that humans have thought about our role in thinking and solving problems. In the beginning, there was determinism. For some, this was a god. For some, this was the universe. But basically, things were predetermined for us. We didn't have a lot to say in this matter. We didn't have a lot of power. We just kind of showed up and did the best we could, tried to behave, and move on, and hope the universe was nice to us. Then we became enlightened. We discovered that science can help us understand linear causality. We can do experiments and find truths that we can not write down and then pass generation to generation. We built up a huge body of knowledge, knowable stuff. Then the quantum physicists came, and they kind of complicated everything because they were like, wait a minute, there's something about context that's important here. There's something about the relationship between the observer and the observed that can actually create some sort of interdeterminism. This, although very confusing, led us to two big aha moments. The first being instead of thinking just about possibility, like black or white, if this happens, then this happens, we now need to think about probability. What's the likelihood that something would happen or not? How much certainty do we actually have versus is it just mostly all filled with unknowns? And then another big thing happened as well. This is when we discovered we have agency. We have power if things are interdeterministic to influence what's going to happen. Let's see what agency feels like in the body. Everybody, get your arms ready. This is what agency feels like in the body. Can you join me? Do you feel that? You have to kind of thrust your arm up. This is what agency feels like in the body. It's about setting an intention and then determining that you're going to do it. Now, with all these different ways of sense-making, things get really messy because we still have all of these different sense-making tools in our toolkit. And we don't always know which context to apply them in, so we have a lot of messiness. And as someone who works with technology, someone who tries to help figure out what kind of technology we should apply to different types of problems, I often think about, I often get asked, could you help kind of get rid of the human messiness? So I think, what does messiness look like? Well, for me, messiness, and actually scientifically, messiness is when you start bringing your own biases and opinions and feelings into situations where facts are actually available. We actually do know stuff, and we can actually pull knowledge with a pretty high degree of certainty and use that. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner for Thinking Fast and Slow, did a great job of explaining some of this messy humanness when he explained to us that how our biases can seep in and cause us to make bad decisions when the right decision is pretty knowable. And Daniel Kahneman also helped us understand, and through his book Noise, how having too much variation on a system of judgments where we expect uniformity is dangerous. When I see people thinking about using AI, I think, this is the context where AI serves us well. AI can help us find the right data in knowable context, in situations where uniformity is desirable. But I see a lot of problems happening when algorithms are created without stopping to think about how we're creating them. One of the biggest fallacies I see is people creating algorithms confusing correlation with causation. So you have something that's a statistic, but it's not highly probable, and then we plug it in and we create it, we use it as a causality for what a decision that's going to be made. This is a major fallacy. So although algorithms can help us get better at getting our facts straight, they're only as good as the algorithms that we choose to make to help us get our facts straight. And it's important to also understand that this is only for contexts where variation is not desirable. What kind of context do we have where variation is desirable? I would say quite a lot. Innovation, creativity, growth. We have variation built into our bodies and into all of humanity to be able to meet the complexity that we need to be able to build the solutions for the future. Within an individual, we have our stomachs giving us information, intuition. We have our hearts giving us passion, pain. We're able to feel very deeply sadness. Even in our minds, we have different functions in the hemispheres working all the time, saying, we've got these facts, we're going to organize these facts, but our mind is also going, oh, but I also want to holistically zoom out and look at all the knowledge available and try to make sense of things in context. That's what we call wisdom, when we take knowledge and we put it into context. And then as groups, we have all kinds of variety. We have various genders, we have different cultural backgrounds, different races. And all of this variety is the variety we need to be able to design the solutions for the future. Only variety can meet variety. This is Ashby's law from cybernetics. So So we both have situations where we can get rid of mess when we actually have knowables, and that's where AI is really useful. And then we have situations where we call dynamic situations where we actually want to bring as much variety in, make sense of it, and then converge on ideas to go forward. Now, when we think about creativity and innovation and things like that, Peter Singer gave us a really good wording. He calls creative tension the gap between the current reality and the envisioned state for the future. We need this creative tension more than ever. And if we start with technology first, we're at risk of not paying attention to the problems we need to be solving because we're focusing on how to implement a certain technology. If we lose our creativity, we're not just at risk of losing some paintings in museums. This isn't about art, although art is a really good way for us to start to feel the pain, that the creative tension that's among us, and think about the problems we're solving. But we need creativity more than ever in the innovation process, because innovation doesn't equal technology. Innovation equals coming up with the right problems to solve and then figuring out how to solve them. Now, here in Stockholm, there's the Stockholm Resilience Center. Is there anyone happen to be present from there? If you feel like screaming, no? From Stockholm University. They're the first group of scientists who have quantified 9 planetary boundaries within which humanity can continue to thrive for generations to come. This is the first time in the world someone has quantified this, and it's very important because this gives us data to support the fact that if we don't get creative really fast as a society, we're not going to have a future. So we need our creativity more than ever. We need to tap into the range of our creativity as a species to be able to meet the problems of tomorrow. But we're facing a new glass ceiling. The new glass ceiling holds people down of all genders, all races, who want to try to build towards a future with long-term goals over short-term monetary targets and status. And people who are trying to move this paradigm suffer from gaslighting. Gaslighting, for example, when you're showing up in a technical space and you start trying to change the conversation to talk about the problem, you get tech shamed. I've tried it many times in my life. Oh, this is technical. You obviously just don't understand. It's a deflection. They also do that when it comes to business. Oh, you want to work with sustainability? Oh, we have a business to run. Do you understand business? And I'm not exaggerating. These are the things I hear. Because when you start asking questions that point to the real problems, these are fundamental questions, so they seem kind of obvious in nature. They're not technical questions. They're fundamental questions. So be prepared for these deflections. Be prepared for it. But we have a new glass ceiling. Right when we're fighting to be able to show up at the table, we actually need to be redefining the table, overthrowing the table. But you know what? There's no one in a better position to disrupt a system than people who the system hasn't been serving. We've got a lot of experience with glass ceilings, don't we? So we can show up for this one too. If we all channel our individual agency, and we focus and we ground ourselves with our intentions on what is right, we can drive a more problem-focused development process in the tech industry. And if we show up together, we're even stronger. Let's see what that agency feels like again. When we do this together, these ceilings, they can't hold us. We got this, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for once again telling us to show up and also use our agency. And we'll actually be hearing more from you in just a few minutes as well. Give it up one more time for Sarah.